Hello and welcome to Discrete IAS Academy. Today we are going to discuss about 2+2 ministerial dialogue between India and Australia. And we will see this 2+2 ministerial dialogue will have a strategic importance in the relations between India and Australia. First of all, let us understand what is this 2+2 dialogue. 2+2 means 2 ministry from India and 2 ministry from Australia. Defense Ministry and the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Both the ministries of both the nations will collaborate, will meet, and they will discuss on various contemporary issues. So 2+2 dialogue is a dialogue between defense and the foreign ministry of both the nations. So it is a high level institutional mechanism between two nations. Apart from that, India has a 2+2 dialogue with USA, Japan, and recently India had with Australia. And most interestingly, these three nations plus India have a regional grouping that is known as the Quad. India, Australia, Japan, and USA commonly known as the Quad grouping, which have an influence over the Indo-Pacific region. This Quad grouping is majorly focused upon safe, secure, and free Indo-Pacific region. So from this point of view, this 2+2 dialogue becomes very important, that India has a 2+2 dialogue with all the nations included in the Quad grouping. Now we will discuss that under this dialogue what has been discussed and how the dimensions of the India-Australia relations has changed. The first pillar is the shared vision. Both the nations have agreed that they have a shared vision for the Indo-Pacific region. The Quad grouping has been framed to have a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. So both the nations will collaborate in the Indo-Pacific region to have a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Apart from that, they will collaborate in a regional grouping and the multilateral grouping. We know several countries are claiming, are having the territorial claims and showing their assertiveness over this region, and this region has various island nations. So both these countries, India and Australia, will collaborate for the development of those island nations. Apart from that, the ASEAN grouping. Under this ASEAN grouping, the countries which are involved and are included in this ASEAN grouping, they will collaborate with all these nations for their better development and better growth to have a strategic presence over this Indo-Pacific region. And the multilateral cooperations, for example, the United Nations Security Council. In these contemporary times, we know the power tussle, the power dynamics have changed. So both the nations will collaborate to have a reformed United Nations Security Council, have a reformed representation in the UNSC. And also the Malabar exercise. This Malabar exercise is a joint naval exercise between India, USA, and Japan. Initially, when this Malabar exercise has been started, India and USA was the part. Later on, Japan has been included in this Malabar exercise, and after this COVID pandemic, India has invited Australia to join this Malabar exercise. So now this also becomes very important that in this Indo-Pacific region, all these four nations are collaborating under Quad, which is not a military exercise. Quad is not a military grouping. Quad is more than military grouping. It is a soft diplomacy, the soft power. The Quad grouping includes the soft power of the four nations. Here we need to understand that India, Australia, Japan, and USA are included in the Quad as well as in the Malabar exercise. And also India has a 2+2 dialogue among these three nations, USA, Japan, and Australia. Again, this becomes very important from this point of view, that India is having a 2+2 dialogue with the nations included in this Malabar exercise, the joint military exercise. And also, both the nations have agreed to have a co-production and co-development of the defense equipment. Basically, India relies upon defense imports. And Australia has promised to help India for the development of the defense equipment and the production of the defense equipment, which means the Atmanirbhar policy for the defense sector can be boosted up by this relation. So these 2+2 dialogue becomes very important from the defense perspective, from the Indo-Pacific perspective, from the Malabar exercise and the Quad perspective, and also for the production and the self-dependency in the defense sector, in the defense equipment. And the second pillar is strengthening India-Australia bilateral cooperations. Both the nations have agreed to strengthen their bilateral cooperations by improving the flow of trade. There should be free flow of trade. This Indo-Pacific region accounts for 60% of the world trade. The Indo-Pacific region accounts for the 60% of the world trade. So both the nations have said that there should be free flow of trade from this region. There should be adherence to the international rules and norms. That this is a international waters. Indo-Pacific region, Indian Ocean region and the Pacific Ocean region is a international water. All the nations have their free right to have a trade. No one can claim their territorial assertiveness. No one can impose their assertiveness over this region. All the nations should follow the international rules and the norms. Apart from that, sustainable growth in the entire region. All the island nations included in this Indo-Pacific region should be involved in the growth process, and there should be an environmental check over the trade. If there is a chances of trade in this region, if countries in this region are trading among themselves, there is a risk of environmental pollution. For example, the air pollution and the oil spill over the ocean that destroys the underwater life. So there should be a check over that. And also, after this COVID pandemic, both the nations had an agreement that is known as Mutual Logistics Support Agreement, which means suppose any Indian naval ship is passing nearby the Australia. Suppose this naval ship requires some logistical support. Australia agreed that if any Indian naval ship, any Indian naval container requires any kind of logistical support, for that matter, Indian naval container or the ship can access the Australian naval base. The Australian naval base will be accessed by the Indian naval ship, and vice versa for the Australia. Any Australian ship is moving nearby India and they need some logistical support. For that matter, Indian naval base will be provided to the Australian ships. So that will expand the military agreement across the services, and they will also share the defense information among themselves. So by these steps, India and Australia are strengthening their bilateral cooperation. Along with that, both the nations have said that they will strengthen their soft diplomacy, their cultural diplomacy, the people-to-people contact. Under this pillar, they have agreed for the migration and the mobility partnership agreement. This agreement will be signed that will enhance the people-to-people movement, the migration from one nation to another. The cultural renaissance will be enhanced. And also India-Australia Circular Economy Hackathon. This is basically a waste management system. The Sustainable Development Goals focus upon a clean environment and a proper standard of living for the citizen of the nation. So these India-Australia Circular Economy will help for the better waste management system, and this waste management system can be useful for development of the standard of living of both the nations, especially for India. And that will again boost up the Swachh Bharat mission that has been initiated by the Indian government. Along with that, Australia has said that the new education policy of 2020 that will boost up collaboration between academic institutions for both the countries. Australia has promised that the new education policy of 2020 that it has the potential to improve the knowledge base, to improve the research base of Indian youth, the Indian students. For that matter, Australia will provide a collaboration between the academic institution of and help the Indian students to have a proper entrepreneur guidance and the research guidance. So that will again help to promote the demographic dividend, help to improve the demographic dividend for India. So these are the opportunities under the people-to-people contact, and this will improve the cultural bonding of both the nations, the cultural diplomacy of both the nations. Along with these pillars, both the nations have agreed on other various issues. For example, defense and strategic cooperation. We have seen that both India and Australia are focusing upon the Indo-Pacific region. This Indo-Pacific region becomes the focus point of this relation. And Australia will help India for the co-production and co-development of the defense equipment. Apart from all these, India and Australia has also promised to have a better strategic cooperation and the defense cooperation to improve their joint military exercises, to improve the strategic presence in the Indo-Pacific region and other multilateral institutions, for example, UNSC. They have a shared vision for Afghanistan. Afghanistan has been captured by Taliban after the US exit. Both the nations are democratic nations, both respect the democratic values and the citizens' right. So they have agreed that the civil rights and the citizens' right are very important for the human society. So they will collaborate for the development of the people of the Afghanistan, irrespective of the type of government, whether it is elected or non-elected. But development of the people of Afghanistan is more important. So both the nations will collaborate to have a soft power over Afghanistan. And also, they have agreed that this 2+2 dialogue will signify their comprehensive strategic partnership. India and Australia has a comprehensive strategic partnership. This 2+2 dialogue will again enhance their comprehensive strategic partnership, and this comprehensive strategic partnership is the highest level partnership among two nations. And this 2+2 dialogue will be held once in every 2 years. Defense and the Foreign Affairs Ministry of both the nations will meet together and will discuss about the contemporary issues and will enhance the bilateral cooperations and the multilateral cooperations of the nation. So these are the key highlights of this 2+2 dialogue and the contemporary India-Australia relation, and how this can solve the other issues, for example, the Afghanistan and the other Indo-Pacific region and the Middle East crisis. So these are the points that you have to remember from the exam point of view. And more specifically, you need to understand that India has a 2+2 dialogue with USA, Japan as well. And under the Malabar exercise, Australia has been invited by India recently. So Quad, to have a free open Indo-Pacific region, Malabar exercise, joint military exercise between the 4 nations, and 2+2 dialogue among other nations with India. So I hope you will like the lecture. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, like the lecture and share the video. Thank you. Jai Hind.